Your roadmap to the latest in auto? Welcome to Highway Herald. In just a few months, Donald Trump's ambitious plan to revive American industry through heavy tariffs has hit the brakes. What began as a push to bring jobs home has instead fueled layoffs, surging costs, and global retaliation. From North Carolina's pharma hubs to Britain's steel mills, entire sectors are feeling the shockwaves. The promise of a manufacturing boom has shifted into a worldwide trade standoff, one that's leaving both allies and workers reeling. So how did this bold strategy collapse, and who's really paying the price? The tariff gamble backfires, from big promises to harsh reality. When Donald Trump returned to the White House, he vowed to reignite America's industrial might, with factories in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and North Carolina roaring back to life. His tool of choice, tariffs. The plan was simple: tax imports heavily and push foreign firms to build plants here and hire American workers. At first, it echoed his earlier steel and aluminum battles, but this time the target was Big Pharma. Trump's team floated tariffs of up to 100% on imported branded medicines unless companies built on U.S. soil. Yet reality hit fast. Novo Nordisk's Clayton, North Carolina site, maker of the Ozempic drug ingredient, began laying off staff instead of expanding. The irony was undeniable. Tariffs meant to protect jobs were now cutting them. Deep-rooted global supply chains, cost pressures, and long investment timelines all clashed with short-term policy goals. The result? A strategy built on revival, now showing cracks under real-world strain. But America's misfires in pharma were just the beginning. The cracks in its trade armor soon rippled through the entire medical supply chain. Pharma in turmoil, how tariffs shattered global supply lines. Trump's tariff gamble aimed to pull drug manufacturing back to U.S. soil, taxing imported medicines up to 100% unless companies built plants locally. The vision: America as the hub for finishing, packaging, and high-value assembly. But once the plan hit reality, the details got messy. Key terms like building plants remained vague, timelines unclear, and enforcement stalled. So much so that Verywell Health reported the policy was on hold. While giants like Eli Lilly invested $5 billion in a Virginia facility, such projects create high-skilled jobs, not the broader employment surge tariffs promised. Meanwhile, Novo Nordisk's U.S. layoffs, part of a 9,000-job global cut, exposed the paradox: build here rhetoric colliding with cost-cutting reality. Across the industry, from APIs to packaging, firms faced rising costs and production delays. Instead of fueling a domestic boom, the tariff pressure fractured pharma's supply chain, revealing that incentives alone can't rewire global manufacturing overnight. Before we delve deeper, we'd appreciate it if you could subscribe to Highway Herald. Your support fuels our passion to create more in-depth content just like this. But as Washington doubled down on its economic defenses, another major player across the Atlantic was preparing to hit back hard. Europe strikes back, a continental shift toward trade retaliation. As America tightened its trade screws, Europe decided to grab the same wrench. The European Commission unveiled plans to double steel import tariffs to 50% once quotas are breached, and those quotas themselves will shrink nearly 45% to around 18 million tons. For decades, Europe prided itself on open markets and WTO principles. Now, it's mirroring Washington's protectionist stance, declaring, if the U.S. builds barriers, we'll do the same. The fallout is global. Exporters to both regions now face tariffs, uncertainty, and shrinking markets. The world's trade engine grows more unstable as major blocs mirror each other's tactics. For automakers, this shift hits where it hurts: steel. Higher input costs ripple across supply chains, forcing factories to rethink production sites and sourcing. The result? A potential relocation of jobs and investment. Europe's shift proves this isn't just an American story, it's the start of a worldwide tariff domino effect. Yet Europe's retaliation wasn't the end of the story. Across the Channel, Britain found itself at the epicenter of the crisis, with its steel industry pushed to the brink. Britain's steel meltdown, a nation's industry on the brink. Nowhere is the tariff fallout sharper than in the United Kingdom. The British steel industry, already struggling, now faces what insiders call the greatest crisis in its history. Under the EU's new steel plan, nearly 78% of UK exports to Europe will lose free access, with anything above quota slammed by a 50% tariff. The government's costly lifeline, like the £235 million rescue of British steel in Scunthorpe, can only go so far. On the ground, jobs hang in the balance, investments stall, and supply chains twist under global pressure. Caught between US tariffs, EU quotas, and cheap Chinese steel, Britain's mills risk going cold. For automakers, that's trouble. Higher input costs, unstable sourcing, and rising vehicle prices. The UK's experience serves as a warning to the world. When trade walls pile up, the very industries they're meant to shield can become the first to collapse. And if Britain's plight sounded the alarm, what came next was the full-blown shockwave, as the entire global system started to shake. Global shockwave, when protectionism spirals beyond control. Here's the breaking point. What happens when every nation turns inward? In manufacturing, especially autos, materials like steel, aluminum, and components cross borders countless times. As tariffs rise, costs surge, production relocates, and jobs often move, just not to the countries imposing the rules. In the US, pharma job growth hasn't materialized, with layoffs like Novo Nordisk's proof of strain. Across the Atlantic, British steelworkers brace for collapse, while Europe raises tariffs in response to Washington. The result is a global tariff spiral, fractured supply chains, frozen investments, and economic whiplash. For automakers, this means higher input costs, squeezed margins, and plants reconsidering where to build. Ignoring deeper pressures, China's overcapacity, Europe's energy costs, and shifting alliances, only worsens the misfire. What began as a promise to restore jobs now fuels layoffs and instability. In a world driven by shared production, protectionism doesn't rebuild strength. It simply moves the factory floor somewhere else. As the dust settles, one thing becomes clear. This trade war has rewritten the rules of global industry, and the aftermath is far from over. Closing reflections. The tariff gamble's aftermath. Lessons from a broken system. We've now followed the full circuit, from the early optimism of America's reshoring dream to the painful shutdowns in pharma and steel, and from Europe's retaliatory tariffs to Britain's looming industrial cliff. The conclusion is hard to ignore. The tariff engine may have revved high, but it's running on fumes. For the automotive industry, this new trade map means higher input costs, shifting supplier bases, and longer build cycles. It's a reminder that, in an interconnected manufacturing world, protectionism often burns more fuel than it saves. Before you go, tell us in the comments. Do you think tariffs can ever truly bring manufacturing jobs back home? How do you see these policies affecting car prices and availability in the coming years? And should global car makers adapt or resist this new era of trade nationalism? We'd love to hear your take, because every enthusiast has a stake in how these gears turn. If you're fascinated by how trade wars ripple through the car market, from raw materials to the vehicles we drive, subscribe to Highway Herald to stay on the road with us. You'll get notified whenever we roll out fresh updates and deep dives into the auto world's biggest turning points. Thanks for watching. And until next time, keep your eyes on the road and your passion in overdrive. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's more exciting and informative content waiting for you.